Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Gothenburg Health podcast. I am Andrew Knust. I'm the CFO here. I am pleased to be joined by Dr. Brady Beecham again and special guest Rachel Gentzler, our respiratory therapist. How are you guys?
Welcome. Doing well. Rachel, how are you?
I am great. Thank you guys for inviting me to be on the podcast.
Yeah.
So excited.
Yeah.
And nervous.
Long-time listener, first-time guest.
Yes.
Something like that.
Well,
We're so glad you're here.
Yeah, Rachel said to me earlier that you have to speak in front of fifth graders next.
Fifth graders on Friday morning.
Okay, well, I'm good practice for that. We're on the same level, so you'll make it through this and that just fine.
They could be a tough audience.
They could be.
My son is included.
Oh, that's a challenge then.
What are you talking to the fifth graders about?
So they went through the respiratory system, and my son kept saying that, his mom is a respiratory therapist, and could she come and teach the respiratory section? So his teacher reached out and asked if I would come be a guest speaker just to review it with the kids. So,
well, try to teach us as much as you teach the fifth graders.
Okay.
I don't know if we'll be as good of an audience as the fifth graders.
My knowledge gap is probably the same, though, so this is good.
Are you willing to learn?
Of course. Of
Okay.
course I'm willing.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Well, tell us what you would tell the fifth graders. What are you going to tell the fifth graders when you talk to them about, like, being a respiratory therapist and the lungs? And how do you think about it? Where do you start?
Protect your lungs. Absolutely no vaping. That is a critical age to review that stuff with them because, they'll actually still listen to you as fifth graders, and hopefully we can catch them before they've started to make any decisions that can affect their lungs. I know I kind of mentioned to you guys earlier that breath is life, and we all take that for granted until you don't have it. And so whatever we can do to kind of get that across to people that it does matter, protect your lungs as much as you can. So vaping is huge. That's one of the biggest things I'm going to talk to the fifth graders. I'll obviously review the respiratory system and everything, but there's so much new research coming out on the effects that it has. Actually, when they first came out with the electronic cigarettes, providers, respiratory therapists, people were encouraging patients to use that as a smoking cessation tool because they thought it was a good way to get people off cigarettes.
I remember hearing that.
Yeah. And then right before COVID started, we really started to get a lot of research on the damage that it actually does. And then it kind of got pushed by the wayside with COVID and everything with the respiratory system, because obviously that affected respiratory patients too. So,
well, Rachel, a respiratory therapist, already talking down smoking on our podcast. I can't say this is a huge surprise, but I appreciate you getting right there.
Yeah, and it seems like vaping's been a thing for a long time, but it has not. It's been a very short, at least since it's been mainstream.
Yeah.
5 years ish. Yeah.
Everybody thinks it's okay because it's not cigarettes. So.
Well, and there is this talk, it could be just nicotine replacement, but then there was some stuff that there was some people getting sick, this lung injury associated with vaping, the stuff that you put into your lungs and in your body in general. Yeah. You got to be pretty careful.
So the biggest thing with that is they're actually heating up an oil. And so then when you inhale that, there's no way for that to actually get out of your lungs. It sits down in the little air sacs, which are called alveoli, and it impairs that gas exchange and can create major, major damage.
Yeah, the lungs aren't really made for dealing with oil.
No.
That's not really found in air very much.
No. And then all the chemicals they use to flavor it. And that's kind of how they market it to the younger generations and kids. Oh, it's grape. It's bubblegum. It's, I think there's over 5,000 different flavors they have now for it.
Yeah, relatively unregulated industry, too.
Yes.
Or at least it had been. I'm sure it's getting more regulated now, but yeah.
Fascinating. So it's not just cigarettes we have to worry about, huh?
Yes.
Really, most of the stuff that goes into your lungs, as you say, like the lungs are made for a pretty specific purpose. So gas exchange and bringing in air and carbon dioxide out, and it can absorb all this other stuff, but it's really not made to do it.
It's not meant to do it.
Yeah. Well, let's back up a little.
Okay, sorry.
This is super interesting. All right. Well, you've already given us the no smoking talk. We can get back to that, I'm sure. I'm sure this isn't the last time we'll hear that talk. But tell us a little bit about kind of what you do. You're a respiratory therapist here at Gothenburg Health.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Lots of things. I help people with breathing, obviously. We do pulmonary function testing where we can do testing on your lungs to see, If you have what they call COPD, we can assess asthma, just kind of get that baseline breathing.
And COPD is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and kind of another smoking.
Yes, usually related to smoking. Doesn't always have to be. We have a lot of farmers and ranchers in the area. People who apply chemicals onto their crops. Any of those things can affect your lungs as well as smoking.
One of my favorite pastimes as a boy used to be riding behind the diesel truck that was spraying for mosquitoes. Good or bad?
Bad.
Oh, okay.
I think you're going to be my next patient. Can you talk to your provider and get a pulmonary function test?
I do recall
ordered?
loving that. Even then, I probably knew this was not a good idea.
There's stories about, I've heard patients talk about when they were spraying crops, just running behind that spray. And I think there's some sweeteners in it sometimes. Some of them they've even tried to outlaw because they say there's some sweeteners in it and people get into it. I know lead was always, they talked about it being so sweet. But yeah, probably not we've already come up with some really good health tips.
Yes.
As well
No
as the
vaping,
oil to get it to stick to the plants, too.
Perfect.
You don't do that anymore, do you, Andrew?
Guest,
No, they
Rachel.
don't have those trucks anymore. I might be tempted to.
This is a what not to do version of the Gothenburg
Yes.
Health podcast.
That's my role here.
I think we need some education for Andrew on how to protect his lungs.
Right.
This is very informative. Yes, really. Breathing in clean air, in and out. That's always hard to get an upgrade over that, huh?
In through your nose. If you breathe in through your nose, you're going to filter your air better. So that's better on your lungs, too. I teach patients that a lot.
Really?
You're not meant to breathe through your mouth. That's only the secondary mechanism in case your nose is blocked. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, what about in through your nose, out through your mouth?
Yes, in
Is there
through your
anything
nose.
about that?
Yes, in through your nose, and then push out through your mouth. We do a lot of pursed lip breathing in pulmonary rehab. So when you exhale out, you want to exhale out longer, but always in through your nose if you can.
Just because there's the kind of the nose hairs,
Yep.
humidify it and filter and
Your
some of that
turbinates,
stuff.
all of that is meant to warm and humidify, and as well as filter, which is less harsh to your lungs. So asthma patients, if they can breathe in through their nose more, they actually have less asthma attacks.
I did not know that. That's really interesting. Andrew, did you know that?
No.
Do you know what else it's
Being a
good for?
mouth breather. We've heard about that, but I really didn't.
There's
know
science
all the
behind
science.
the whole mouth breather designation. Okay.
Also relaxes your nervous system.
Okay, now my kids in school, they are learning these breathing techniques, and it's always kind of in through your nose, out through your mouth, and they say it these really sweet ways, like breathe in like you're smelling cookies, breathe out like you're blowing a balloon.
Yep.
It's very nice.
I actually did know that because I tried to trick Teresa Netherton biometric screenings for my blood pressure test. I always tried to use that to knock a few.
Lower your blood pressure,
Yeah.
a little biofeedback.
Yeah, I never got real great at it.
Maybe
You've
we're
got to
better.
practice
Maybe
it.
it did help.
Not just in the moment.
Just not in the moment, but it
Twice a
does
year?
help. It can actually lower your blood pressure. So we do it as stress reduction techniques too. Everybody turns to medication as the quick fix, but doing breath work sessions and doing some meditation can help lower your blood pressure as well. It's also really good, if work is super crazy and stressful, it can help calm you down and bring you back to your baseline. If you can't fall asleep at night, you want to do breath work before. So I've actually been kind of going down that rabbit hole a lot lately with breathwork sessions. And I got to do that for the school in Eustis. We featured it on our website, but we went in and taught the kids some different breathing techniques. They had a testing day and just showed them how you can use breathwork to help calm your nervous system down after that, or how you can use it to kind of energize you and get ready. Like if let's say you're shooting that winning free throw at the basketball game, right? And you're in front of the audience and you need to calm down, but be able to perform.
Well, even in language, we talk about, okay, take a deep breath and get centered. That's interesting. And I have read some data about this and meditation and controlling breath and things like this.
Yep.
I think in the East, I think they're very interested in this, all about how breath, and as you say, breath is life.
Breath is life. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I have a book on my list to read I think it's called Breath, and it's just focused on the power of breathing.
James Nestor.
I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a lot of extra ones you can read if you like that one.
Yeah.
We could start our mornings maybe with a breathwork session. before the day, or even and right after lunch if we need a calming down.
How
we can
would
do
you
that.
do it? Like, is this something you do personally? How
Yes,
does somebody kind
yes.
of do this in a simple way in their own life?
So it kind of depends on what your goal is, right? There's different types of breathing that you can do if you want to relax, calm down that nervous system, or even just try and get ready for sleep, right? Those
Let's
are
say,
typically...
What would you do if you were going to be on a stressful podcast where they were going to grill you about your job?
I did. I took 5 minutes to do some breathing.
Okay, what did you do?
You can close your eyes or leave it open, and you breathe in through your nose, usually for a count of 4. 5 is great. And then you hold for a second and just grab all the tension in your body, gather it. And then when you exhale out through your lips, push together. And you want to exhale out longer than you inhale. Take some practice. And you want to do it more than once, right? You want to do it over and over until you kind of feel yourself relaxing. There's a great one. It's kind of weird, but alternate nostril breathing. Have you ever heard of this?
Well, I knew as a kid that I could breathe out of one nostril or the other, but it's never anything I've been able to control consciously.
Yeah.
Are you, Rachel?
Yes. When you're stressed, you actually will have...
About you just plug one side and then like
you do plug it. You manually plug it,
Yeah,
but...
Oh, okay. Oh, well, that I can...
circus trick.
I can handle that.
But you can balance your brain, the left and right side of your brain, to help you focus better too. I used to have lots of focus issues, and part of my job, being called 20 different places in a day, can make you kind of scattered and like, what do I need to do next? So I definitely had to find techniques to help me be able to balance and focus better. So
Yeah, I want to learn the breathing technique that I can use to stay warm in the deer stand when it's really cold.
okay.
Because that's possible.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. You can raise your body temperature.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Also, all sorts of important things. Lower your blood pressure,
Yeah.
raise your temperature. Just fascinating. Just how, and as you say, it's usually breathing is under autonomous control. That's how we think of it, that most of the breaths you take you don't think about, but that you can gain control over it really easily with your mind just by kind of focusing on your breath. But when you stop focusing on it, you still breathe.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that way. One of those things that you can kind of click in and out with your conscious mind for it.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay. What else do we want to know about respiratory therapy?
Well, you just mentioned like being able to help folks. Like, what are some of those tangible ways that the patient can come in and you can help them get well or live a better life or maximize?
Yeah. Coming into the emergency room a lot of times they're short of breath, or they can't control a cough, or they just can't catch their breath. And so, again, those breathing techniques, I do a lot of breathing with patients. And then, of course, I have medicines that the providers order that will help relieve that a little bit. So that's a tangible way. We've also brought in some new devices to Gothenburg Health. It's called a high-flow oxygen therapy, or an AirVo, which is really, really cool. It's great for our patients who are breathing really fast and they can't catch their breath, but let's say their oxygen levels are okay. It's a way that we can deliver high amounts of flow so they don't have to breathe as fast without giving them too much oxygen. And it's not just for respiratory patients. Patients who come in who are septic or they're having a heart attack, we can really support those other organs by utilizing this device.
And that's an example where oxygen kind of is medicine for other things, that even sometimes, we put oxygen on a lot of patients when they come in and they're struggling with something else. Just sort of the idea, okay, if we can support your breathing, then your body can focus on other things that it's trying to do.
The other thing I love too is just where respiratory therapists go all over the hospital and we're involved in every type of patient. We have a lot of experience in seeing the body as a whole and how all of the systems work together. So yes, I directly work with the lungs, but we have to understand the heart. We have to understand septic patients. We have to understand brain injuries, because brain injuries can affect your breathing, just literally anything, and how it kind of all ties together.
Tell us a little bit about pulmonary rehab, because that's kind of a different, when it's not when people are acutely sick, but trying to support. And we think of physical therapy and occupational therapy, but it's kind of the same idea. Tell us about that. I just think it's a really interesting concept.
I love pulmonary rehab. Working at Gothenburg Health, we kept seeing some of these patients keep coming into the hospital with breathing issues. And so it's like, okay, we need to teach them about their lung condition. We need to make sure that they're using their medications properly, teach them breathing techniques, how to make their diaphragm work, use pursed lip breathing, review their nutrition, and get them moving again. If they can't move, they don't do anything. And so then when they sit in their chair, they actually become worse off, but they don't move because they can't breathe, right? So it's kind of that vicious circle. They don't want to get up and move because it makes them short of breath. And so they sit, but the more you sit, the more short of breath you become. Yeah. So we've had some really cool success with our pulmonary rehab patients. And I'm not going to lie, it is a struggle to get patients in. Patients with lung issues, it's a lot of work to get dressed, leave your house, walk in here, try and go through a program, and then still do everything else they have to do. So it's definitely been a learning curve on, okay, I have to keep calling patients to get them to actually start. And then we go through just teaching them how to breathe while they're exercising. We focus in pulmonary rehab a lot on weights, because when respiratory patients or lung patients use weights, they don't get as short of breath as they do if they're walking or on a treadmill or even on the SciFit machine. So they have less breathlessness. We're able to build their muscles, which means they can use oxygen more efficiently, and we can get some really good gains.
Nice. So pulmonary rehab isn't just about deep breathing,
No.
exercising your lung.
No.
It's about strengthening your whole body.
Your whole body.
In
Yep.
a way that kind of focuses on how you can breathe better.
Yep. We focus on depression, anxiety, because a lot of times those coexist when you have lung issues. We look at their nutrition. We look at all medications. We really, really look at the person as a whole. And then we tailor what we do with them to what they need. So we set goals with them. We'll do an initial walk test. We walk for 6 minutes, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you can't breathe, it can be a struggle. We measure, what their heart rate, their respiratory rate, their oxygen levels do, and then we have a scale on how short of breath they are. And we see that distance of how far they walk. So we do one at the very beginning, and then we do one at the very end, and the goal is for them to be able to walk farther, not be as short of breath. Hopefully a lot of times if they were using oxygen, we're able to not use as much, and then just kind of get them more functional in their life. It could be as simple as they want to be able to take a shower without having to sit down or need to rest for half an hour afterwards. Or maybe they want to get back out and fix fence. Or maybe they just want to be able to walk through the grocery store. We meet all the patients where they're at, set goals with them, and then slowly work to improve what they can do. It's been so fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I know so much of people's risk factor, coming back to our original topic, is about smoking. And so how do you kind of counsel people about walking away from typically cigarettes? I mean, we talked about vaping, but do you do some of that counseling? And how do you approach people? What do you find is successful? Like if there's somebody listening who says, I probably shouldn't be smoking or smoking as much as I do, where do you advise people to start?
First I discuss with them, do they want to quit? Do they truly want to quit? Because if they don't, that's okay. That's their decision. But if they are interested in quitting and want to quit, then we can talk more about it. I usually give them a book recommendation. Atomic Habits is a great one for changing your habits.
What's it called?
Atomic Habits.
Okay. All kinds of good book recommendations.
Love to read.
Rachel, thank you.
Love to read. But just how they can change your habits. As much as you want to change any habit or an addiction, and it could be anything. It could be food. It could be drinking. It could be smoking. Anything, right? Like everybody has kind of their habit or their vice. So if you truly want to change it, it's figuring out when you smoke. Most people smoke when they get up and they have their coffee or their Mountain Dew. When they get in their car to drive somewhere, they have certain spots that they'll light their cigarette up. It's
all triggered by the environment.
Yeah.
Actions.
Yep. So even if they want to quit, they may only be able to go 2 or 3 days quitting it. And then before they know it, they've just picked it out without even realizing that they've picked it up. So it's changing those habits. I always refer them back to their provider too, because there are medications that can help with smoking cessation as well. Nebraska has a quit line resource as well.
Yep, that's a good one. That's a good one, because sometimes they can provide some limited medication support, but they also just try to give some encouragement in general. I think stuff like that is really important, because I heard some really interesting things about when you talk about change your behaviors. Again, just like you can have that cigarette lit in your mouth before you really even know what's going on. And so they say things like, go to a different place. If you always smoke in this place at this time of day, don't go there at that time of day. Go someplace else. You know, if you smoke when you have a break at work, don't go to that tree. Walk the other direction. You know, just
change your route, change your path,
change your behavior a little bit. Can kind of get your brain out of that just, immediately I got my hands in my pockets and I've got it, you know, almost ready to go before my brain even thinks about it. Yeah. Nicotine replacement, we talk about that as a component of trying to quit cigarettes, just because you don't get all the other stuff. You still get the nicotine, which is kind of what your brain is jonesing for. And so that can be an effective tool for some people. You know, it's kind of, you know, I think eventually people want to walk away from it altogether, but we think of different strategies and, as you say, try to meet people where they are. But I think that most people who quit successfully quit cold turkey. Is that still the statistics you hear?
It appears that way.
Yeah, at least half, they say. Yeah. And some people, they talk to me about, well, I quit quitting and now I've quit again, or I quit for 2 days. I'm like, that's okay. It's a process. Yeah. You know.
Well, and I tell them, don't beat yourself up. Like, celebrate the days you made it without smoking and how you felt.
I think changing any behaviors, it's
difficult.
We're creatures of habit.
Yes.
Yeah, sometimes it's about creating longer lengths of time between, you know, when you fall down, you know.
Yeah, like celebrate your wins. And I think, as you say, don't beat yourself up.
No, absolutely not. Support your wins. Celebrate those wins like you just said.
We also talk about, whenever I'm talking to people in clinic about this, I'm like, okay, one thing that a strategy that we sometimes use is set a quit date. Okay, set a quit date. And then I always tell people, and you tell your friends what the quit date is.
Yes.
And the reason you do that is so that they can harass you if they see you smoking after the quit date, if they don't know. And then you go and you take your stuff and you throw it in the lake, or you get rid of it.
You get rid of it, so it's not even by it there.
It's called littering. Do not put it in the lake.
She did say throw it.
Yeah.
Is it better
Okay, throw it in the trash can. Burn it up.
None of those things. Okay. Dispose of it in the appropriate setting. Thank you, Andrew. That's a very good
That's why I'm here.
Rachel, who are some patients who really have touched you?
Oh, there's a lot that come to mind. I keep going back to my pulmonary rehab patients right now, just because, one, they're entertaining. They cheer each other on to keep going. And just, I've seen a couple who have literally changed their life. Roxanne just did a feature with one of ours, and it'll be shared here shortly. I encourage everybody to listen to this story. He thought he had 2 years left to live. Couldn't breathe, was super short of breath, and now he's pretty much at the Y, exercising every day, even though he's graduated from pulmonary rehab.
Awesome.
I bet I know who this is. I see him on the track. I see a lot of you guys as patients just hanging out with you in your office there too. So it's a great relationship that just from the outside you can tell that you guys are building. And
it is building.
Well, and you're just so encouraging. I mean, as you say, I think some people are afraid to come and afraid to start, and it's like I see this huge mountain before me and I don't even know how to tackle it. But
we take it one step at a time.
One breath at a time.
One breath at a time. One breath at a time, yes.
And then also, like in the ER, you know, as I said, we're always so appreciative when, you know, we're having people that are really struggling to breathe, and in critical moments to have you come in and help. And anesthesia also is a part of that, you know, for people who are putting on the ventilators. So it's a team sport, but
absolutely.
As you say, if you can't, I mean, when they teach us all about the critical stuff, it's ABC. Airway is the A. Yep. So that's at the top of the list. If you can't breathe, you're done. You don't need to worry about the other stuff. No. Like, A is at the beginning for a reason.
Keep the airway open. Keep the breath flowing.
Give me your take on this, and then maybe any other like misconceptions that respiratory related. Okay. Mice, they breathe 90 to 170 times per minute. They live 1.5 years to 3 years. Monkeys breathe 30 to 50 times a minute, and they live 20 to 30 years. Humans, we breathe 15 to 18 breaths per minute, and we live 60 to 80 years. Turtles breathe 4 breaths per minute, and they live 300 years. Are we breathing too much, Rachel?
Absolutely.
That's your question? Are we breathing too much?
That's it.
Not, is there a relationship between respiratory rate and life expectancy?
That is the question. That's a simplified version.
If you slow your breathing down to that 4 to 5 seconds in and then a little bit longer out, so 6 seconds, that's about 10 seconds for a cycle. That's 6 breaths per minute. But if you're expanding your lungs, making that diaphragm work, right, you want bigger breaths, because the bigger breath you take, it's going to expand everything and make it work better. But yes, we do need to slow our breathing down. So it's all
like
about the
turtles,
technique. Breathe like turtles.
I'm not sure how I'm going to do this.
Unless you're exercising.
Life.
Well, yeah.
If you're exercising, you have to increase that rate.
And exercise is good.
Exercise is good. Breathing's better.
Smoking is bad.
You're not.
Turtle breath is bad.
I love that, Andrew.
I'm not sure if that's a tip that our listeners can implement in their day-to-day life. Start breathing.
I'm going to try to be more like a turtle.
A respiratory rate of 4 breaths per minute would not be healthy for a human. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Not for a human, no.
Okay.
No.
You guys taking the hair out of my sails.
We don't want the CO2 to go way up.
Well,
It also depends.
is.
It also depends on your lung function, right?
True.
Yeah, it depends on that tissue. There's a whole lot of other things now.
So I might be right.
I like 12 to 16.
Should we agree with them or leave it?
We do need to slow it down and focus on taking a bigger breath in.
Don't give me that. Don't.
Well, this has been very, very interesting. Rachel, thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming, for what you do for the patients, and just your enthusiasm for your work. It really shines through.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. See you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.